Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Ankit from Master Investment, where we seek to be better investors than before. Today on our channel, we have Mr. Ali. If you have watched our previous video, you must have remembered Mr. Ali, and he shared really unique perspectives with us on whether it's beneficial to buy a property from a broker or not. If you have not watched that video, I highly recommend to watch it. Well, in this video, we want to discuss some of the most asked questions on our channel, and we would like to ask Mr. Ali for his professional view on those questions and what he thinks about them. First of all, I would like to welcome Mr. Ali on this channel and thank him for his time.
Mr. Ankit, thanks for the invitation. As I said also in the previous video, we are both not national speakers, so apologize already if someone doesn't understand us. But yeah, let's see what kind of questions your community has, and I try to give proper answers.
The first question that many people ask me is about Zwangsversteigerung.
Yes.
And they ask me what's the process, whether it makes sense. So I think maybe it would be really helpful if you can tell whether it makes sense for a normal person to go in Zwangsversteigerung or not.
Okay, so with Zwangsversteigerung, we have to go a little bit deeper. There is one big advantage of Zwangsversteigerung. If you want to buy real estate, no matter the price or anything, then this is the place to be, because this is the only place where you will get the real estate apartment if you are willing to pay the questioned price. If you want to buy an apartment and you are going on the normal market, even if you pay the highest price, it's not a guarantee or not assured that you will get it. So this is actually the big difference. But with Zwangsversteigerung, a lot of people are going to Zwangsversteigerung, and also a lot of, let's say, not experts. And the prices usually at the end of the Zwangsversteigerung are much higher than on the normal market. So I have a lot of friends who are going into Zwangsversteigerung, but they're doing it more than 10 years. They're total experts. They usually buy it before they get into the Zwangsversteigerung. So with everything else, you have to be an expert. If you don't know anything about Zwangsversteigerung, I can guarantee you will not find a good deal in a Zwangsversteigerung.
I've also seen like there are many companies who post ad on Immobilien Scout or other portals regarding these Zwangsversteigerung. So what are these companies? I mean, are they brokers or they just post ad?
Depending, I mean, they can be both, but they get the people with the low price. This is the main reason why people think that if they go to Zwangsversteigerung, they will get the low price. But in the end, if you actually could see for what price they actually got reserved or sold, you will be very surprised, because it's usually twice or triple the price. And then it's also, I think, not very interesting anymore.
So when people say that they bought the apartment in Zwangsversteigerung before it went to the auction, what does that mean?
There are many solutions to get it. I'm not an expert when it comes to Zwangsversteigerung. I was thinking about it 10 years ago. The experts in that field, they have the solutions to get it before it goes.
Do you think if you have a good relation with a bank consultant and then you directly ask him whether there is any Zwangsversteigerung from his bank, would it be one of the solutions to get Zwangsversteigerung property?
So this is a solution. I mean, to get a nice deal anyways, you need a nice network. So you can also buy, it doesn't have to be a Zwangsversteigerung in general. It can be a real estate or listing from the bank intern where you don't even see it. So it makes definitely sense to ask all these kind of experts if you can get a nice deal. This is what I can give you in general. If you are patient enough and going for the big numbers, so a lot of appointments, a lot of network parties and stuff like that, you will always be successful. But most people give up too quick.
So I think the learning from here is to be patient and make your network and meet people, and also do not just visit 1 or 2 or 10 apartments, but go around and visit hundreds of apartments, and then you will find the one at a good price or a fair price.
There's a saying, your network is your net worth. So it's actually, this is totally true. I can definitely agree on that.
Makes sense. The next question, which has been asked many times, and I think it's also something which is interesting for me personally, is how do you approach a property if you are buying it as an investment and if you're buying it for yourself or personal use? So do you treat them differently, or you treat them the same, or what is your tip?
Of course, you are willing to pay a little bit more if you want to live in it by yourself, because this is the segment where we're talking about emotional reactions. And this is a big difference. Even in my case, I'm human as well. So if you buy something for yourself, you are willing to pay a little bit more if you want to live there with your family and you have a nice garden and everything like that. But if I'm buying an apartment for me as an investment, I deduct all the emotions that I have, because it has to make sense when it comes to the numbers. This is the only thing that counts. So this is the big difference between, or let's say, real estate investing and also buying for yourself.
I mean, when we talk about numbers, I would like to also ask you, current real estate market, the prices have shot up to the sky, and if we see the rental market, the prices have gone up. But still, if a person is buying a residential property as investment, then he's not getting that much rent that he can get a good rendite or a good return on his investment. What do you think about this? Should a person still invest in real estate, or it doesn't make sense anymore?
So I get this question a lot, especially in my surrounding environment. When is the perfect time to invest in real estate? And there's only one answer, always, because you will always find a nice way. Definitely, of course, if you watch these kind of videos, I mean, there are a lot of experts out there who give you a lot of hints and tips, which is really nice. But you have to consider that people who are getting returns of 5, 6, 10% a year, which is really good, they are doing this for more than probably 10, 15, 20 years. You cannot, if you are just starting in investing in real estate, compare yourself with them. And this is a huge problem that we have. So people see a video and they say, I want to buy an apartment in the city center for this and that price because someone told me that they got this as well. But you don't understand that people have worked 10, 15 years to get these kind of apartments. So what I'm telling people who want to really invest in apartments is, your first deal will never be the best deal, but it will be the most important deal because you get to know to the whole system. You start to see what kind of problems you have, the challenges that you have, the whole communication with the tenant and everything. So don't be too strict with the first apartment that you buy. Of course, don't buy apartments that no one can recommend or an expert, but the first investment will be it was in my case as well, will be the most important, but probably not the most efficient.
Actually, I would agree with Mr. Ali here. So it's same for me also. My first apartment, I made several mistakes, and to be honest, my first tenant was also not the best tenant. So I think, but you learn from all these mistakes, and in the next investment,
I would not even call it mistakes, but this is something that you learn for the future. You have to start at some point. Einstein was not born as an expert in the field that he has been, but he got his experience and worked his way through. So this is where everything else as well. We need to make mistakes, then let's call it mistakes, to gain our experience.
We are talking about the real estate prices going up, and as we can see, it's mostly in the major cities like Frankfurt, Stuttgart, Munich. So there the prices have seen the most growth, and the smaller cities or the rural areas, there we have seen the market has grown a bit, but you can find really cheap apartments there. So what do you think? Would it make sense as a real estate investor to invest in those rural cities where the market price is still low, or one should buy in the major cities where the price is going up?
The answer to this question is depending on the actual real estate listing. So I will definitely tell you it's a good idea or bad idea, because there are so many different strategies. I have people or clients and friends who have so many different strategies. Some go to the rural areas, some go to the major cities. So there is a solution everywhere. You have to find your niche, you have to find your strategy, and then go inside. This is the thing that you have to learn. And if you go to the rural area, which is also a nice strategy, as long as your apartment is better than the average, people will still go to your apartment because there are tenants everywhere. Even if you go to places where tenants are going down or people don't want to live in that area, there are still some people there. If you have apartments who are better than the average, people will still go most likely to your apartment than the ones who are not so good. So there is always a solution to this kind of thing, but then of course it has to make sense also from the investment area sense. So if you buy an apartment in a rural area, the prices should be much better, so your return would have to be much higher than in a city area, because you have to consider the tenants are not in big numbers there, so you have to calculate that your apartment will be empty for several months. If it makes sense at the end of the calculation, it will still make sense. These are the risk management that you have to make for every investment.
Another question that I would like to ask you on this channel is, buying a property which is in a bad condition and then renovating it, would that type of property is better than buying a renovated property?
Also, depending on your strategy, you have to take in consideration what you want to do. So if you want to buy a property that you want to renovate, you have to think about, do you have the A-team that we talked before or not? And there are people who are not familiar with this. People to come to the site and everything. You have to take a look. You have to see the prices and everything. This is something that I personally don't like as well. But there are also people who buy properties who need a renovation. You buy it cheaper, and then you can either sell it or use it by yourself and as an investment. To give you a general answer to this question is very, very difficult, depending on your strategy. There are people who flip houses, they buy it, then they renovate it, then they flip it. But then you definitely need people who help you. And the most important thing is that you buy cheap, like everything else, because you always have to consider a little risk, especially when you're new in the business, because a lot of things can happen. If you open a wall, there's so many surprises behind it, and
Yes.
always calculate conservative and always with the risk.
In Germany, I have seen, or at least in Stuttgart, I have seen that the high-rise buildings, the buildings with more than 10 floors, is very rare. But for example, in some areas I have seen that there are high-rise buildings, and usually in those buildings the apartments are cheaper than as compared to other, let's say, 4 multi-family house. So why is it so?
In Germany, or let's say in this area, in Berlin, you have a lot of real estate, let's say, constructions like this. In the Stuttgart area, I have the feeling that most people think they're living in a ghetto style area when the high-rise building and you have so many neighbors and stuff like this. And if you take a look at most of the names of the apartments, it's mostly people from other countries. So this is something that sounds strange, but most people don't like this, or let's say this is a factor that brings the market a little bit down. And also the working expenses for the apartment. Sometimes you have an elevator, you have more expensive if the facade has to be done, the ceiling, the pipes and stuff like this. So this is something you have to take in consideration as well.
What do you recommend a buyer? So if they are buying an apartment, irrespective of whether it needs a renovation or not, but if it has a really high Hausgeld.
If you have high Hausgeld, it can be two different options. So either it is something like this, that the Rücklage is very high. Then if the Rücklage is really high, I would ask, why is the Rücklage really high? Because then probably the complex needs more renovation. It can also be that the expenses of the tenant or the owner before was really high, like heating costs and everything. And this is also included in the Hausgeld. Let's make a small example. If you buy an apartment and there was a family inside with 8 people in a small apartment. Of course, they use more water, they use more heating, and if you want to buy it for yourself with your wife, with 1 or 2 people, then the expenses will be much less, and this is something that you can definitely see in the Hausgeld. So what will happen is, for 1 year you will pay the higher Hausgeld, after 1 year you get the calculation, and then your Hausgeld is going down. But the Rücklage will remain the same or even go up, depending what kind of apartment you buy. But this is the ratio where you should focus on and see where is it coming from.
As we are on this topic, I would like to ask one more question related to this. If the Rücklage is very high and the buyer knows that it needs renovation, so should buyer consider that property or should they stay away from it?
I mean, if you have a high Rücklage and you know where the money is going, depending on the apartment, if I buy an apartment and the Rücklage, you have 3 million and you know that the facade is going to be renovated, you get a new heating system, new windows, new ceiling. This is something that's actually nice for the apartment. Even if I have to invest money in it, the price of the apartment will go up more or less. You should always take into account what are the Rücklage for, or the investments for the apartment in the long term, and am I ready to take the risk or pay the money for the apartment? Yeah. But of course, if there's a big renovation pending and you have to pay 10,000-20,000 Sonderumlage, this is something that you need to consider in your calculation, if then the apartment is still a good deal or not.
Next question that many people ask is, when they are looking for a mortgage, should they go to different banks to get the deal and then bid against different banks, or should they just go to 1 or 2 brokers and they can offer them different conditions?
This is also something that we're talking about a team. If you want to invest in real estate for a longer term, you need your experts at your side and you have to be some kind of loyal, you know. So if you have a good partner at your side, be loyal and treat him nicely. If you're going to 10 banks and someone is giving you a good deal and use this contract to go to 10 other banks to get, 1% or 2%, 5% better, this is something that you can do, definitely, but we are in a people's business. Try to find a nice or build up your A-team, but at the beginning it shouldn't be a problem to go. 10 banks would be a lot, but at least 3 to 5 banks. Also, broker are nice. You need experts surround you, and if you found a nice expert who you feel comfortable with, stick with it.
I guess it's a really good advice, which I think everyone should follow. And as a real estate investor, I think it's really important to form this team. So you need a bank consultant, expert on the construction side, also an expert who knows the area well and the price. Of course, you also, and you will learn from them. But I think it would be good to have a team. The last question of this session is, we have seen that on Immobilien Scout or any other website, if the apartment is already rented and then it's been sold, then usually the selling price is a bit lower. Now there comes 2 situations. First is, if I'm buying such a property as an investment, then how should I look at it? And if I'm buying this property so that I can live in it myself, then how should I look at it?
I mean, Germany, as everybody knows, is very law-friendly when it comes to tenants. You have to take this into account. So it's not so easy to cancel the contract if you buy a rented apartment and you want to live in it by yourself. There are ways, definitely, but there's also a moral side of the question. If there's a, old lady, 19 years old, I'm not a big fan, and I definitely will never tell one of our clients to do that. But everyone has to decide by him or herself. You can cancel a contract where someone is living, but then the courts will decide either you will find another solution or not. So-called Eigenbedarfskündigung. There are strict rules how to do it. So there is a way, but this is also risk management because it will also take time. I'm a big fan of talking to the people. Even if it's an old lady, you can go there. Can I help you with somehow? I'm not a big fan of lawyers and everything. So if you sit down with the people, find a nice solution, this is the most efficient way. But of course, if you make an investment, you want to earn money with it, which is totally correct, but it's a risk if you buy an apartment, which is in most cases rented not good. And this is a bit into the future, because if you buy an apartment which is not rented good, in the process of buying or in the next few months will get free, then you made a nice decision. But if the person is staying there for, I don't know, 20 years for the same rate, of course, can increase the rate. You have to calculate and take in consideration how big the risk is and how not. I have bought apartments which were rented very low. After a few months, they left it because they, I don't know, found a new partner and stuff like this. This is nice, but this is something that can happen, but it's not a guarantee. And if you want to live in it by yourself, this is also something that I will always tell my clients. We will sit down with the tenant and find a solution.
I think it was a really nice talk with Mr. Ali, and he shared really good insights, and I hope you will find this good. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel, and I will try to find such special guests with interesting insights again and again.